The alien fleet hung at the edge of the solar system, their ships like dark shadows blotting out the stars. For centuries, Earth had wondered if there was life beyond, and now that question had been answered in the most terrifying way possible. The Thalkor had come, and they were not friends. Their warships outnumbered anything Earth could field. Their weapons glowed with energies humans barely understood. They spoke with arrogance, their voices cold and mocking as they declared that humanity must bow. Earth was nothing more than a stepping stone in their endless conquest. They demanded surrender, but they did not expect resistance. Captain Daniel Carter stood at the center of the Terran Defense Fleet's command chamber. His face lit by the pale blue glow of the star maps. He looked calm on the outside, but inside his heart was racing. He knew humanity had only one chance. If they submitted, Earth would become a slave world. If they fought, billions might die. But still he believed that surrender was worse than death. Around him, officers worked at their consoles, their voices tense as they tracked the alien fleet's movements. No one spoke of fear, but it hung heavy in the air like smoke. Carter prepared the final message, the last warning Earth would send. His words were simple. They were not begging. They were not asking for pity. It was a line drawn in the void. Do not cross into our home. Do not test our resolve. Humanity will not bow. He pressed send, and the transmission raced through the void, reaching the towering alien flagship. On the alien command deck, the Thalkor High Marshal received the warning. His reptilian eyes narrowed. Then he laughed, a cruel sound that echoed across his bridge. His officers joined in, mocking the words of a species they saw as weak and primitive. To them, humans were like ants waving spears at giants. They dismissed the warning as a last gasp of pride before extinction. In their arrogance, they could not imagine that Earth might be prepared. Back on Earth, the world held its breath. People crowded into public squares, staring at giant screens that showed live feeds of the alien fleet. Cities grew quiet. Prayers whispered in every language. Mothers clutched children close, fathers clenched fists. The leaders of Earth knew this was more than survival, it was dignity. Humanity's right to exist freely. If the aliens crushed them, their spirit would vanish forever. Carter turned from the console and looked at Admiral Richard Hayes, a man, older and scarred by decades of service. Hayes gave a small nod. He understood. There would be no surrender. The fleet would fight even if it was hopeless. But Carter knew something the aliens did not. Earth had secrets, projects hidden deep beneath the surface of the moon and buried under oceans. Weapons that had never been revealed, the aliens thought. Humanity was helpless, but they were about to learn that Earth was not so easily broken. The silence in the command room was broken by a young officer, her voice trembling but steady. Captain, the aliens are moving closer. They're forming attack lines. Carter tightened his jaw. The moment had come. There would be no more diplomacy, no more warnings, only survival. Hold positions, he ordered. Let them think we're weak. Let them believe we have nothing left. We will show them the truth when the time comes. As the alien armada crept forward, beams of alien energy flaring like storms on the horizon, Carter closed his eyes for a brief moment. He thought of Earth below, of blue oceans, green forests, and bustling cities. He thought of families who had no idea how close death was. He thought of children who would never see another sunrise if they failed. And then he opened his eyes, steel returning to his gaze. The Thalkor laughed again, broadcasting taunts to Earth. They mocked the warning, calling it foolish, calling humans arrogant for daring to speak as equals. But their arrogance blinded them. They did not see the calm determination in Carter's eyes. They did not hear the quiet courage in the voices of Earth's defenders. The aliens believed victory was already theirs. But soon, they would understand. For this was not just Earth's last warning. It was also a promise. Humanity would not kneel. Not now. Not ever. And as the alien fleet advanced with careless confidence, unaware of the storm waiting to strike, the story of Earth's resistance began, and the galaxy would never forget what came next. The alien fleet did not wait long. After dismissing the warning, they moved with ruthless speed, their warships sliding through the blackness of space like predators closing in on prey. The first flashes of light cut across the void, beams of energy lancing toward Earth's orbital stations and defense satellites. The battle had begun. Humanity's words had been ignored. Now only fire would speak. Commander Lisa Monroe stood aboard the defense station Sentinel, her dark hair tied back, her eyes sharp and focused. She watched as alien fire lit up the darkness, explosions flaring across the upper orbits as human satellites crumbled under the assault. "They're testing our strength," she said quietly, but everyone on the bridge could hear the edge in her voice. The aliens were arrogant, but they were also precise. Each strike carefully aimed, each shot a message that said, Earth would fall. "Activate the Aegis net," Monroe ordered. Her voice rising instantly. Commands rippled through the control decks. Deep beneath Earth's surface, buried power cores surged awake. Thousands of nodes spread across space came online. Beams of blue light linked together like a web. The Aegis net was Earth's hidden shield, a system built in silence for decades. Few outside the Defense Force even knew it existed. But now, the world would see it. Alien energy fire met the Aegis net, and for the first time, their beams did not find their target. The shield bent like liquid light, rippling but not breaking. A roar erupted inside the defense station. Officers cheered as alien weapons failed to strike true. But Monroe did not smile. She knew this was only the beginning. The aliens had not expected resistance, but they would not stop. From the alien flagship, the High Marshal barked orders in his guttural tongue. Enraged that his opening barrage had been blocked, more ships moved into attack formation, their massive cannons glowing as they charged for another strike. To the Thalkor, Earth's defense was nothing more than an inconvenience. They believed they only had to press harder and the humans would break. Monroe's hands gripped the console, her eyes moving over the battle maps. She could see the lines of alien ships tightening around Earth's orbit, their weapons focusing on weak points in the shield. "They're probing for gaps," her tactical officer reported. "If they find one, the Aegis net will collapse." Monroe nodded grimly. "Then we won't give them one," she said. "Reroute power, reinforce the weak points, make them believe the shield is stronger than it really is." Across Earth, people were watching in terror and awe. The skies lit up as glowing streaks from the alien weapons became visible even to the naked eye. Children pointed at the strange lights above the horizon. Parents whispered prayers. Broadcasters reported every detail as humanity witnessed the first great space battle of their history. Fear spread, but so did something else. Hope the Aegis net held. Inside the alien fleet, frustration mounted. Warships regrouped, hammering at the defenses with everything they had. Explosions rippled through the edges of the shield. Bursts of fire shaking the human stations inside. Monroe's crews worked desperately, voices sharp as they shouted updates. "Sector 9 shield integrity at 60%. "Reinforce it," Monroe barked. "Cut power from the outer satellites. Keep the heart of the net alive." Her officers obeyed without hesitation, each of them knowing that if the net fell, Earth would be exposed. One massive alien cruiser pushed forward, its hull bristling with weapons, its cannons glowing red as it unleashed a devastating beam. The Aegis net trembled under the impact. Sparks erupted inside Monroe's command deck as the energy bleed surged through systems. Alarms wailed. For a moment it seemed the shield would break, but the light bent again, snapping back into place. The alien shot had failed. Monroe allowed herself one small breath of relief. "Keep watching," she told her crew. "They won't stop until they find a way through." And she was right. The aliens did not retreat. They pressed harder, more ships joining the assault, each strike heavier than the last. The void between Earth and its invaders burned with fire. Human defenses strained, and yet still they endured. In the shadows of the command deck, some officers whispered to each other, wondering how long they could last, but Monroe silenced them with her presence. "We don't ask how long," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "We hold until the last breath because down there billions are counting on us." She pointed to Earth, its blue surface shining below them, and her words steeled their hearts. On the alien flagship, anger turned to confusion. Their commanders could not understand why this fragile world resisted, why their superior weapons could not crush the shield. The High Marshal snarled and ordered a full bombardment, an attack meant to overwhelm the humans completely, but in his rage, he did not notice the subtle patterns forming within Earth's Defenses. He did not see that the humans were not simply defending. They were preparing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. The first contact fire had begun with arrogance and mockery. But now in the darkness of space, the aliens realized Earth was not the easy prey they imagined. Humanity had teeth, and as the Aegis net pulsed with light, holding strong against impossible odds, the stage was set for a war that would shake the stars. The battle in orbit grew stranger with every passing hour. The aliens kept firing their massive weapons, beams of red and white cutting across the void, explosions shaking Earth's defenses, yet something was happening that no one could explain. Warships from the alien fleet began to vanish. One by one, they simply disappeared. On the bridge of the TDS Resolute, Admiral Richard Hayes leaned forward in his chair, his eyes locked on the holographic display. A Thalcor cruiser had just blinked out of existence. There was no explosion, no debris, no signal of distress. One moment the alien ship was there, the next it was gone. What happened? Hayes demanded, his voice sharp. Did we destroy it? The sensor officer shook his head in disbelief. No, sir. There was no impact, no energy signature. It's just gone. The crew exchanged nervous looks, whispers spreading like wildfire. Across the alien fleet, panic rippled through their command channels. The Thalcor were proud warriors, but even they could not hide their unease. Ships did not vanish without reason. Their officers accused each other of cowardice, of sabotaging the fleet. Their high marshal roared with fury, but behind his rage was fear. From Earth, civilians watching the battle could not understand it either. The news channels showed images of alien warships blinking out. Commentators struggled for words. Some said it was a miracle. Others thought it was alien trickery, but in truth it was neither. It was humanity's secret finally revealing itself. Admiral Hayes sat in silence for a moment, his mind racing. He knew exactly what this was. Years of whispers and hidden meetings. Years of secret funding and sleepless nights had built to this moment. Project Eclipse, humanity's hidden weapon. The aliens were not simply vanishing. They were being hunted. Hayes leaned closer to the comms officer, lowering his voice so the younger crew members would not hear. Confirm Project Eclipse is active. The officer checked encrypted channels, then nodded. Yes, sir. They're in the field. Hayes exhaled slowly. He had hoped this day would never come, but now he was grateful. The project was humanity's greatest gamble, and it was working, far from the Resolute, in the dark silence. Between planets, one of Earth's shadow ships drifted unseen. Captain Monica Alvarez stood at the helm of the stealth vessel Shadow Spear. Her ship was a ghost, hidden in folds of light and energy, invisible to alien scanners. Her crew worked silently. Their faces lit by faint green screens, they moved with precision, with discipline. This was what they had trained for. Target locked, her weapons officer whispered. The alien destroyer filled the screen, massive, bristling with cannons. Alvarez gave a single nod, and the order was carried out. The ship's weapons fired not with bright explosions but with silent precision. The alien vessel trembled, its core ruptured, and then in less than a second, it vanished into nothingness, destroyed so cleanly that no wreckage was left. The aliens could not fight what they could not see. Their sensors swept the void. Their ships fired wildly into empty darkness, but nothing answered. And yet more of their ships kept disappearing. The Thalcor commanders shouted at one another, demanding explanations. Their pride turned to suspicion, then to fear. On Earth, crowds cheered as reports came in. More alien ships gone. The balance was shifting. For the first time since the invasion began, hope filled human hearts. Children danced in the streets. Old veterans saluted the sky. People who had prepared for the end now whispered that maybe, just maybe, humanity could win. Back on the Resolute, Admiral Hayes rose from his chair, his voice steady but carrying weight. Signal to all defense stations. Hold the line, Project Eclipse is in motion. The crew obeyed, confidence sparking in their eyes. They did not know the full truth, but they knew something had changed. They were no longer powerless. High above, the aliens were growing desperate. Their weapons continued to pound against the Aegis net, but the shield still held, and their own numbers were thinning. Their mighty armada, once unchallenged, was being cut apart piece by an enemy they could not even see. The High Marshal slammed his claws on the command table, his fury echoing across his officers. But beneath that rage, his thoughts turned darker. He had underestimated Earth, and now he was paying the price. On the Shadow Spear, Captain Alvarez did not celebrate. She remained calm, her eyes on the next target. She knew this was only the beginning. The aliens were powerful, their fleet enormous, and Earth's victory was far from certain. But for the first time they had struck fear into the hearts of their invaders. The silence of the disappearing ships haunted the aliens more than explosions ever could. It was a reminder that in the vast darkness of space, even the mighty could vanish without a trace. The humans had turned the void itself into a weapon, and as the alien fleet reeled in confusion, the war entered a new stage. Ships were gone without warning, and soon the galaxy would learn what the Thalkor were beginning to realize. Earth was not weak. Earth was not prey. Humanity had claws hidden in the shadows, and those claws were drawing blood. Beneath the cold gray surface of the moon, deep inside chambers carved by human hands, something ancient and secret came alive. Project Eclipse. The weapon Earth had, hidden from the galaxy, was finally unleashed. While the alien fleet roared with anger and confusion in orbit, the shadows of Earth's hidden power moved silently, unseen. Captain Monica Alvarez stood at the command deck of her ship, the Shadow Spear. Her dark eyes scanned the holographic display. Her vessel was not like the bulky cruisers humanity once built. It was slender, sharp, and covered in a cloak of shifting light. To the enemy, it was nothing but empty space. Targets ahead, her weapons officer whispered. Alvarez raised a hand, calm but firm. Steady, wait for the opening, she replied, her voice quiet. Yet every crew member leaned in, ready to strike. The alien destroyer loomed ahead, its glowing cannons powering up for another strike against the Aegis net. Alvarez's lips curved into a thin smile. Now, she said. The Shadow Spear slipped between two alien cruisers, unseen, its weapons fired, but there was no dramatic flash, no thunder, only a sudden silence. The destroyer blinked, out of existence. Swallowed by the void, her crew exchanged glances, excitement in their eyes, but Alvarez kept her calm. Do not get comfortable, she reminded them. For every one we destroy, 100 more wait. We are ghosts, and ghosts must keep moving. Her words carried across the ship like steel, grounding them far away. Other Eclipse ships moved through the alien lines, each one commanded by captains trained for this day. Cloaked frigates and corvettes darted like predators, invisible until they struck. Alien cruisers and carriers vanished, their mighty hulls crumbling under precise fire. In minutes, the Thalkor fleet had lost ships they thought untouchable. In the alien command chamber, panic spread. The High Marshal bared his sharp teeth, demanding answers. Who dares sabotage us? He roared. His officers shouted accusations at each other, but no evidence appeared. Their sensors showed nothing. Their scans revealed only empty black. They could not fight what they could not see. Their pride was their weakness. They could not believe these fragile humans could wield such power. Back on Earth, the secret of Project Eclipse remained hidden from the public. The governments told the people only that Earth was fighting back. News channels repeated the same words. Alien ships destroyed, human fleet holding. But no one explained how, and perhaps that mystery gave people more hope than the truth. They saw their enemy crumble, and they began to believe inside the Shadow Spear the crew worked with machine-like precision. Lieutenant Aaron Blake guided the ship through the narrow gaps between alien formations, his hands steady on the controls, sweat beading his forehead. 2 destroyers on our flank, he said. Alvarez placed a hand on his shoulder. Take us between their shadows, she instructed. Blake swallowed, then twisted the controls. The ship slid between the destroyers, unseen. Then Alvarez gave the order. 2 precise shots, 2 flashes, and both alien ships were gone. The crew cheered quietly, but again Alvarez reminded them, we are whispers in the dark. If we grow loud, they will hear us. Stay sharp. Her voice cut through their excitement. Keeping their fear and pride in balance, she knew too well that one mistake would mean death. Other Eclipse captains reported in short bursts of coded transmissions. Enemy carrier neutralized. Cruiser erased. No detection. Proceeding. The network of ghost ships grew bolder, weaving destruction across the alien fleet. The once unstoppable Thalcor armada was being sliced apart without ever seeing their hunters. Meanwhile, Admiral Hayes aboard the Resolute watched the battle unfold on his screens, his stern face betraying little emotion. But inside, he felt a weight lift. The gamble was working. Years of hidden planning were paying off. Keep them moving, he ordered quietly. Strike. Vanish. Strike again. He knew humanity could not match the aliens in open combat. But in the shadows, humans had learned to survive. And now, they would win. The aliens grew desperate, unleashing random barrages into the void. Massive beams lanced across empty space, striking nothing. Their energy wasted, their pride turning to fear. Crews shouted, commanders barked orders, but none of it mattered. For every shot they fired, another of their ships vanished into silence. In her command chair, Alvarez watched the chaos unfold, her eyes hard. They do not understand, she whispered to herself. They think power alone wins wars, but wars are won by will and by the shadows between stars. She clenched her fist, signaling her crew, prepare the next run. As the shadow spear slipped into the darkness once again, her crew moved like ghosts, every motion smooth, every strike precise. They were no longer defending. They were hunting, and the hunters of Earth were changing the course of the battle. By the end of the cycle, dozens of alien ships had disappeared. Without warning, their wrecks reduced to nothingness. Their commanders silenced, their fleets shaken. The galaxy had never seen war like this, and it was only the beginning. The humans had revealed their hidden blade, and in the cold silence of space, the Thalcor finally realized that Earth was not a helpless world. They had underestimated the spirit of a people who had always lived on the edge of survival. They had awakened humanity's secret, and now they would pay the price. The tide of the battle began to shift, slowly at first, like the first ripples of a storm. Alien ships that had entered Earth's orbit with confidence were now breaking formation. Panic spread across the Thalcor fleet as more and more of their mighty warships vanished without warning. Their commanders shouted over one another, accusing their own officers of sabotage, accusing rival clans within their empire of betrayal. But the truth was far worse. The truth was that Earth's hidden hunters were tearing them apart. On the bridge of the TDS Resolute, Admiral Richard Hayes stood tall, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of the battlefield. Glowing red icons representing alien warships blinked out one after another, and for the first time since the invasion began. The map showed more blue than red, the room filled with gasps and quiet cheers, but Hayes kept his voice steady. "Do not celebrate yet," he warned. "They still outnumber us. Stay sharp." His crew nodded quickly, but inside, they felt something they had not dared to feel before. Hope. On Earth's surface, the news spread like fire. Giant screens in city centers flashed with breaking headlines. Alien fleet collapsing. Defenses holding. People who had hidden in fear now stepped out of their homes. Crowds gathered in the streets. Strangers embraced one another, tears of joy running down faces. For days they had prepared for the end. But now they saw survival. Children waved. Little Earth flags, chanting the names of the defense fleets while elderly veterans saluted the skies, whispering that humanity was finally standing tall. High above, inside the alien fleet, chaos spread. The Thalcor were creatures of pride and strength, but pride could not hold against fear. Their captains argued. Their formations broke. Some tried to retreat while others charged blindly forward, each hoping to prove their honor. But in their desperation, they made mistakes. Mistakes that the hidden Eclipse ships exploited mercilessly. Captain Monica Alvarez and her shadow spear darted through the confusion, striking command ships, destroying supply vessels. Every precise strike left the alien fleet weaker and more divided aboard her vessel. Lieutenant Aaron Blake reported with a tight grin. "That's another cruiser gone, Captain." The crew exchanged small smiles, their faces lit with relief. But Alvarez raised her hand, her voice calm but firm. Stay focused. Do not think of victories, think of survival. We strike and fade again and again until they break completely. Her words kept her crew disciplined, reminding them that the war was not over. The alien fleet began to collapse from within. Supply lines severed by invisible hunters. Communication carriers silenced. Their once mighty network of coordination fell into confusion. On their flagship, the High Marshal roared in anger, his claws scraping the metal of his command table. He demanded his officers hold formation, but his words carried no weight now. His warriors were panicked. They were no longer fighting as an empire, but as scattered prey. Back on Earth, the images of disappearing alien fleets played on every channel. Broadcasters struggled to describe it. The ships are just gone, one anchor said, his voice trembling with emotion. Our forces are pushing them back. The people erupted in cheers. For the first time since the war began, Earth was not the hunted, Earth was the hunter. In the United Earth Assembly, leaders stood before cameras, their voices ringing with strength. We are no longer fighting to survive, one declared. We are fighting to win. Their speeches lit fires in the hearts of billions. Recruitment centers overflowed with volunteers. Factories doubled production. The world that had once been divided by borders now stood as one. The Thalkor had come to conquer, but they had forged humanity into something stronger. On the battlefield, the alien commanders tried one last tactic. They grouped their remaining carriers into a cluster, forming a wall of firepower, hoping to catch the invisible hunters by sheer chance. Beams of light filled the void, scorching through empty space, but the humans were too skilled. The Shadow Spear and its sister ships slipped between the cracks, striking the carriers at their cores. Each time, another giant fell. When one of the alien command carriers finally vanished, Admiral Hayes clenched his fists at his side. He did not cheer, but he allowed himself a thin smile. He knew what this meant. Without their carriers, the alien fleet was blind, without supply. They would crumble faster. He looked at his officers, their faces glowing with pride. Press the advantage, he said. Show them what humanity is made of. On Earth, families gathered together, watching every update. The fear that had weighed on them for days lifted. Replaced by pride, children asked their parents if the war was over. Parents hugged them close, saying, "Not yet, but soon." They believed in the defenders above. They believed in the invisible warriors who fought in the dark. For the Thalkor, the panic deepened. Their empire had sent its strongest fleet, a force meant to crush Earth with ease. Yet they were losing, not to greater numbers, not to stronger weapons, but to a people who refused to bow. Their arrogance had blinded them, and now they were paying with fire and silence. The turning tide of battle was more than a shift in power. It was a shift in spirit. The galaxy had thought Earth weak, fragile, a world too small to stand against giants. But now the truth was clear. Earth was not just surviving, it was fighting back, and victory no longer seemed impossible. It seemed inevitable. And as the alien fleet broke apart in confusion, humanity's shadow hunters continued their work, one strike at a time, dismantling the enemy, proving to the universe that Earth's last warning had not been empty words. It had been a promise the galaxy would never forget. The aliens were not finished. Even as their ships vanished and their commanders argued, they still believed they could crush Earth with numbers. Reinforcements poured into the system in waves, new fleets arriving through glowing jump corridors that split the darkness of space. The Thalkor High Marshal had called for everything: carriers, destroyers, battleships, all of them rushing toward Earth like a tide of steel and fire. From orbit, it seemed as if the stars themselves were being swallowed by alien hulls. Thousands of enemy warships filled the void, their weapons charging with deadly light. Earth had never faced such power. Cities trembled as people looked to the skies and saw lines of fire arcing across the heavens. Fear tried to creep back into the human heart, but above it all, hidden in the dark, Earth's defenders waited. Inside the stealth frigate Phantom Edge, Lieutenant Aaron Blake wiped sweat from his forehead. His ship glided silently through the endless night, its cloak shimmering around it. "They're everywhere," one of his crew whispered, staring. At the tactical screen filled with red dots, Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then we stay quiet, stay sharp, and strike when it counts." His voice was calm, though his chest was tight with pressure. The alien fleet unleashed its fury, thousands of beams cutting into the Aegis net. Explosions rocked Earth's defenses, orbital stations shuddered, alarms blared across command decks. On the TDS Resolute, Admiral Hayes barked orders. Hold the net, redistribute power, do not let them break through. His officers obeyed, rerouting energy to reinforce the shield. Sparks flew from consoles, but still the net held, trembling like glass under a hammer, yet refusing to shatter. Then, in the middle of this storm, the hidden ships struck. Captain Monica Alvarez and her shadow spear darted through the enemy lines unseen. Her crew worked like shadows, every movement precise. Target the destroyer on the left flank, Alvarez ordered. The ship shifted, weapons firing in silence. The destroyer blinked out of existence, its place in the enemy formation collapsing. On the phantom edge, Aaron Blake's hands flew over the controls. His frigate weaving between enemy cruisers, every second felt like a knife's edge. They're locking on, his sensor officer warned. Then vanish before they fire. Aaron snapped back, pulling the ship into a tight roll. The cloak shimmered and the frigate melted into the black alien beams shot wildly, striking nothing. Then Aaron reappeared behind a carrier. One shot, one clean strike. The giant vessel vanished in silence. His crew erupted in cheers. But there was no time to celebrate. The aliens pressed harder, filling the void with chaos, ships colliding as they tried to form tighter formations, commanders screaming into their comms trying to fight ghosts they could not see. The more they tried, the more mistakes they made. Still, the pressure on Earth was immense. The Aegis net flickered under the weight of thousands of beams. Monroe, aboard the Sentinel station, shouted over the noise, "Shield integrity at 40%. Her officers scrambled to reroute power, sweat on their brows. "We can't take much more of this," one of them muttered. Monroe slammed her fist on the console. "Yes, we can. We hold until our last breath." Her words pushed them forward. Humanity's resilience stunned the invaders to the Thal core. Lesser species always broke quickly. They begged. They submitted. But Earth did not. Every time they thought the humans would fall, another invisible strike tore through their fleet. Every time they pushed forward, their ships vanished into silence. The High Marshal roared in fury, ordering his dread squadrons forward, but the ghosts of Earth only cut deeper. Aaron Blake knew the risk was growing. Alien fire filled the void. One mistake and the cloak would fail, but he refused to retreat. His hands gripped the controls tighter. His ship slipped into the shadow of a massive alien battleship. The crew held their breath as they drifted close enough to see the glow of its engines. "Hold steady," Aaron whispered, then fired. The battleship shuddered, and in a burst of light it was gone. His ship pulled away, just as alien beams sliced through the space they had been. His heart pounded, but his crew shouted with joy. On the Shadow Spear, Alvarez coordinated with other captains, their fleet of ghost ships moving as one, each strike surgical, each disappearance leaving the aliens more unbalanced. "Keep them guessing," she ordered. "Never give them a pattern." Their tactics were chaos to the aliens, but to humanity, it was a dance of survival. Back on Earth, people clung to one another as reports came through. At first, they trembled with fear at the sight of the endless alien reinforcements. But then they heard the words that changed everything. "Our ghost fleet is holding. The aliens are breaking." Cheers erupted in the streets, voices filled with pride. Humanity had faced the storm and had not fallen. The battle stretched on, the sky lit with fire, but slowly the truth became clear. The Thalcor were losing their grip. Their numbers meant nothing against an enemy that vanished and struck at will. Their might meant nothing against a world that refused to bow. By the time the second wave of reinforcements collapsed, the High Marshal's fury had turned into desperation. His fleets had come to crush Earth in one swift strike, but instead, they were being bled dry, their pride shattered, their strength stolen by shadows. And through it all, the voices of humanity's defenders carried strong. Monroe's fierce commands, Hayes's calm orders, Alvarez's sharp precision, Aaron Blake's daring maneuvers. Together they became the heartbeat of a world that refused to die. The aliens had believed numbers would bring victory, but they learned that numbers meant nothing when the spirit of a people burned brighter than fear. Humanity was still standing, Humanity was still fighting. And with every vanishing warship, the galaxy learned that Earth was no prey. Earth was the predator. The alien fleet was breaking, yet their leader refused to accept defeat. High Marshal Krivak, commander of the Thalkor Armada, stood tall on the bridge of his dreadnought, his scales glinting under the red lights of his command chamber. His voice thundered across his officers. Enough of this shadow war. Enough of this cowardice. I will crush this world myself. His claws dug into the command rail, sparks flying. As he gave the order, his dreadnought surged forward. The ship was a monster, larger than any vessel humanity had ever seen, its hull bristling with weapons, its engines burning like suns. The dreadnought moved with terrifying purpose. Alien captains cheered at its advance, believing their marshal's presence would turn the tide. The humans might have taken smaller ships, but against this they could not hope to stand. The Thalkor believed no force in the galaxy could withstand a dreadnought. On the TDS Resolute, Admiral Richard Hayes watched as the massive ship appeared on his tactical display, the holographic map trembling as the dreadnought's energy output lit every sensor. The crew gasped, some whispering prayers. Hayes did not move, his eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "So, the beast comes to the field," he muttered, then raised his voice. "Signal all Eclipse ships. Converge on target. We strike together or we die apart." The call went out. Across the void, ghost ships turned their bows toward the dreadnought, cloaked frigates in stealth. Cruisers maneuvered silently, each crew knowing what they faced. The odds were near impossible, but none turned away. Captain Monica Alvarez aboard the Shadow Spear tightened her gloves and spoke firmly to her crew. "This is the heart of the beast. If we kill it, they break. Hold steady, fight with precision, and fight with faith." Her words steadied her crew, their fear fading into determination. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Aaron Blake piloted the Phantom. Edge, his eyes locked on the massive alien ship ahead, it filled the screen like a floating fortress. "That thing is bigger than a city," one of his crew whispered. Aaron's lips pressed into a thin line. "And cities can burn, so can this," he replied, gripping the controls. The dreadnought opened fire, its cannons unleashed storms of energy, beams brighter than suns tearing through the void. The Aegis net shook violently. Alarms screamed across Earth's defense stations. Explosions lit the orbits as several satellites shattered. Inside the Sentinel, Commander Monroe shouted above the noise, "Shield integrity dropping fast, 30%. Sparks burst from panels. The station trembled. Her crew braced. But she stood firm. "Hold it. Do not let it fall. Just a little longer." The ghost ship struck. Alvarez's Shadow Spear darted close, firing at weak points along the dreadnought's armor. But the alien ship's defenses were monstrous. Layers of shields deflected most strikes, energy rippling across its surface. Still, the hunters persisted, every shot peeling away another layer, every run bringing them closer. The aliens fired back wildly, but their weapons locked onto empty space. The humans were ghosts, weaving between death itself. Aaron Blake pulled the Phantom Edge into a narrow dive along the dreadnought's flank, his crew shouting as beams of fire narrowly missed. Sweat poured down his brow. "Almost there," he growled, targeting the ship's engine core. With one clean strike, he fired. The blast rocked the dreadnought's side. One of its engines sputtered and died. "Direct hit," his weapons officer shouted. The crew cheered, but Aaron shook his head. "Not enough. We need more. We need all of us." Admiral Hayes gave the order, his voice calm. "Every ship strike the beast, focus fire, bleed it dry." The human fleet moved as one, dozens of cloaked vessels appearing only to unleash their fury, then vanishing again. Their strikes converged on the dreadnought like daggers stabbing into a giant. The void filled with light. The alien flagship staggered, its shields cracking. Yet still it fought on. High Marshal Krivak roared in fury, refusing to believe he could lose to what he saw as insects. "Press forward, fire everything," he commanded. The dreadnought's cannons unleashed another devastating volley. One of the Eclipse ships was caught, its cloak torn apart. It exploded in a blinding flash. Silence fell on the human comms for a moment, grief heavy in their hearts. Then Alvarez's voice cut through, firm and unyielding. "They gave their lives. Now let's make it mean something." Her words lit fire in every human heart. The fleet redoubled their attack, waves of silent strikes ripping into the alien monster, the dreadnought, groaned under the weight of damage, its hull cracking, its weapons faltering. Aaron Blake made one final daring run, diving straight toward the ship's central core. Alarms blared, alien fire surrounded him, but he did not flinch. "Hold on," he whispered, then fired everything. The core erupted, flames tearing through the dreadnought. The mighty flagship shuddered, light consuming it from within. High Marshal Kryvak's roar of denial echoed before vanishing into silence. The dreadnought exploded in a storm of fire and shattered metal, its wreckage scattering like dust across the void. The once proud leader of the Falkor Armada was gone. On the Resolute, Admiral Hayes stood tall, his voice steady but filled with triumph. "The beast is slain," he declared. Across every ship, across Earth itself, cheers erupted. People wept. Strangers hugged. Children lifted their voices to the sky. The alien dreadnought was no more. The remaining alien ships, once fierce and proud, broke. Their courage shattered. They fled into the void, abandoning their mission, abandoning their honor. The mighty Falkor Armada that had come to conquer was now nothing more than scattered fragments. And as silence returned to the stars, humanity knew this was their moment. They had faced the strongest the galaxy could send. They had stood against the monster at the heart of the storm, and they had triumphed not with numbers, not with greater firepower, but with courage, with cunning, and with unbreakable will. The last stand of the Falkor had ended, and from its ashes, humanity rose brighter than ever before. When the last alien ship vanished into the darkness of space, silence fell over the battlefield. For a moment it felt as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Earth had done the impossible. The mighty Falkor fleet, the Armada, that had once been feared across countless worlds, was broken. The dreadnought destroyed, its leader gone, and the survivors fleeing like frightened animals. The war that had begun with arrogance ended in ashes. On the TDS Resolute, Admiral Richard Hayes stood in the command chamber, the holographic map now almost empty of red, only scattered signals of alien ships retreating at full speed. The bridge, crew erupted in cheers, some clapped, some cried, others hugged one another. After days of fear, tension, and endless battle, relief came like a flood, but Hayes remained calm, his voice deep and steady as he spoke. "It's over here, but not over everywhere. Remember this victory, because it is only the beginning." His words cut through the celebrations, reminding them that humanity had stepped into a galaxy that now knew their name. On the surface of Earth, the news spread faster than fire. Cities lit up with celebration. People poured into the streets. Bells rang. Fireworks streaked across the night sky. Families that had prepared for the end now embraced life with joy. Children waved flags, chanting the names of the fleets and the ghost ships that had defended them. Old veterans stood proud, tears in their eyes, whispering, "We held the line, we survived." Across every continent, humanity came together as one, not as divided nations, but as Earth. In the United Earth Assembly, Captain Daniel Carter, the man who had sent the last warning, stood before leaders and representatives. The chamber was filled with applause, but Carter did not raise his hand for silence. He let the moment wash over him, the weight of it heavy in his chest when he finally spoke. His voice was steady, simple, and filled with strength. "We were told to kneel, we were told to bow, and we refused. Today we stand as more than survivors. Today we stand as equals in the stars." His words echoed, carried to billions through screens and broadcasts. People listened in their homes, in shelters, in hospitals. His words sinking deep into their hearts. The fear that had chained them for so long was gone. In its place burned pride, and not only pride in survival, but in unity. For the first time in centuries, the world was one people, and their enemies had fled in terror. High above, aboard the Shadow Spear, Captain Monica Alvarez stood with her crew. They were tired, their faces pale from endless hours of battle, but they carried themselves with pride. Alvarez looked at them and spoke softly. "You fought like ghosts. You fought like legends. The galaxy will never forget what we did here. Her crew smiled, some exhausted tears rolling down their cheeks, but none of them regretted it. They knew they had carved their names into history. Lieutenant Aaron Blake aboard the Phantom Edge leaned back in his seat, the hum of his ship quiet around him. His crew was alive, bruised and weary, but alive. Aaron let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "We did it," one of his crew whispered. Aaron nodded. "We did. But this is only the start. The galaxy will know us now, and they will come again. But when they do, we'll be ready." His voice carried determination, a quiet fire that mirrored the spirit of humanity itself. Even as the celebration spread across Earth, preparations began. Factories worked day and night, building more ships, more defenses. Project Eclipse remained active, its ghost fleet expanding, no longer a secret, but a shield for the future. The Aegis net was repaired and strengthened. Earth was not just defending anymore. Earth was preparing to step beyond its home. Among the stars, the whispers of Earth's victory spread quickly. Alien traders, mercenaries, and spies carried the story across systems. The Thal Corps had been humbled, their pride shattered by a world they thought weak. And every empire, every species, began to take notice, some with fear, others with respect. The galaxy now knew that Earth was no prey. Earth was a rising power, and none could ignore it. In quiet moments, the defenders reflected, Hayes in his command chair, Carter in the assembly, Alvarez in her cloaked ship, Blake with his weary crew. They all carried the same thought. The cost had been high. Lives had been lost. Ships destroyed. Yet none of it was in vain. Earth had survived. Earth had triumphed. The stars that once seemed distant now felt closer. The darkness that once threatened to consume them now looked like a new horizon, and humanity, once overlooked, once dismissed, now stood ready to claim its place. The story of that day, of the ships that vanished, of the dreadnought that fell, of the people who refused to kneel, would echo through generations, told and retold until it became legend. The day Earth's last warning was not just a warning, but a promise kept with courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. And as Earth turned slowly under the light of its sun, its people looked up not with fear, but with pride. The dawn of humanity's future had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.